All right, Shabbos. Good morning. Good Chodesh, everyone. It's incredible schos Baruch Hashem to be able to begin a new week of Maseches Gittin together. Begin by thanking our sponsors for this morning's shir. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors. We don't have Talmud Torah sponsors yet for the month of Sivan. It's a travesty. Okay, who doesn't want the month of Kabbalah Satorah? All right, good. See me after this year if you'd like the Talmud Torah sponsorship for the month of Sivan. Again, mamish. Okay, anyway, so our day of learning sponsor for today, Yitzy Bienenstock, in memory of his grandfather who passed away on Tuesdays in neshama shtav and aliya, and the family a neshama. To thank our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, Gobbie Shayna Cohn, for dedicating all the shurim and drushos this month in commemoration of the yahrzeit of Gobbie's grandfather, Mr. Meyer Oxman. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Sham will have an aliya and the family in neshama. We'll say with that, let us begin. So we'll say today's daf is daf. I'm still getting over that there's no Talmud Torah sponsorship. I don't know. Taking this very hard for this month. Mamish, month of Sivan. All right, good. I'm gonna work on this. Anyway, we'll say, let's go. Today's daf is daf hey. Daf hey. We are picking up on Dalid Amud Beis. Let's pick up in Meretz Hashem. Let us pick up at Tanan. Yeah, Tanan. 3 lines up from the bottom. So we'll say, remember again, just to reorient ourselves a bit, we are still in the midst of the machlokas between Rabbah and Rava. Speaking specifically again regarding the issue of why do we have to say Befanei Nechtav u Befanei Nechtam. This has been the raging, overwhelming, all-consuming machlokas that we have been mired in since the beginning of the Masechta. Mishnah teaches me that a shliach who brings a get from Medinas Hayam has to say this magic phrase, Befanei Nechtav, Befanei Nechtam. The get was written in front of me, the get was signed in front of me. Why? So again, Rabbah says, Lefi she'im bikiyim lishma. Ultimately, again, because they were not well versed in the halachos of lishma. In Medinas Hayam, overseas. Remember, Lishma, meaning the idea, we haven't actually learned the halacha of Lishma yet, but again, just on a most basic level, Lishma teaches me that the get must be written for the sake of this man and the sake of this woman. So Rabbi says, therefore, assures you that the get was written Lishma. Rava, Lefishen Edim Mitsuyin. We are concerned that if the get is contested, that the ability to uphold the get through Kiyam Shtaras is going to be exceptionally difficult, given that the get was from overseas. Therefore, the Shaliach says, Befanei Nechtav u Befanei Nechtam, essentially affecting a Kiyam Shtaras, a certification of the document proactively. So now the Gemara is trying to challenge Rabbah. So Tanan, we learned, Hamevi get Medinas Hayam, person brings a get from overseas, Shaliach brings a get, and he's unable to say the words. He can't say the phrase, Befanei Nechtav u Befanei Nechtam. Okay, what's the halacha? So the Gemara says, if there are edim who are signed on the document, Yiskayim bechosamav. Ultimately, again, it will say Yiskayim bechosamav means certify the document by finding other people who recognize the signatures on the document. Okay, so we'll say, so essentially, if the shaliach can't say Befanei Nechtav u Befanei Nechtam, if he's unable to do so, then halacha l'maisa, certify the document in a typical fashion, either find the witnesses themselves, or go ahead and find someone who recognizes the signatures of the witnesses, and you'll certify the get in that way. So the Gemara says, V'havinan ba, we ask, we'll say, what does it mean that we're talking about a case where the shaliach is unable to say Befanei Nechtav u Befanei Nechtam? What's the case? When you say unable? Let's say this is a good mussar in life. A lot of times in life, we say we're unable to do something. So the translation of that phrase really is, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And again, suddenly something incredible happens. When I don't want to do something, I'm able to convince myself that I am unable to do something. Let's say, how many things do we miss out on in life? Because really, I don't want to, and I just convince myself that therefore I'm unable to. So therefore the Gemara says, when you talk about a shaliach who is unable, eno yachol, he's unable to say Befanei Nechtam, what's the case? To which the Gemara is supposed to top of, hey, ile mecheresh. If you want to say maybe he's a cheresh. Maybe, I will say, I remember again, typical cheresh in the Gemara refers to someone who is who? Deaf and mute. So if you say, okay, maybe Eini Yachol means really, he literally can't say Farnechtam, he's a deaf mute. To which the Gemara says, come on, Cheresh Bare Suye Gitahu, is a Cheresh able to go ahead and be a Shaliach, to go ahead and bring a get? After all, we learned, Vatnan, Hakol Ksherim Lohavies Haget, Chutz Mi Cheresh Shota V'Katan. We learned everyone is kosher to go ahead and bring a get, with the exception of a Cheresh, a Shota, and a Katan, right? A deaf mute, Shota, someone who is deranged, lacks mental capacity, Katan Shal. Both said, come around there amongst those, so, right? Remember again, how do you remember that? Chashu, Cheresh Shota V'Katan. Right? So I didn't sneeze. Right? That's just right. Chashu Cheresh. Once I became a grandfather, I feel like I'm entitled to make those kind of jokes. Right? So now the Gemara says as follows. So the Gemara says, so what's the common denominator between a Cheresh, a Shota, and a Katan? Ultimately, again, they all lack capacity. Now, both say, Shlichos, by definition, requires capacity. If you don't have intellectual capacity, mental capacity, you cannot be a Shaliach. So therefore, I can both say, when you say that the Shliach is unable to say Farnechtam, so what are you telling me? He's a Cheresh? Well, if he's a Cheresh, he can't do it anyway. To which the Gemara says, Amar Yosef, Hakam Askinon, this is very interesting. What's the case? Hakam Askin Kegon, Shenasnu La Kishu Pikeach, V'lo Hispik Lomar B'fanei Nechtav U'B'fanei Nechtam, Ad Shenis Charesh. Very interesting. What's the case? The case is where the Shaliach, I will say, when he was tasked by the husband to go out and bring the get, he had full capacity. Full capacity. What happens? He delivers the get, and suddenly, before he's able to go ahead and say "B'fanei nechtav" or "B'fanei nechtam," he becomes a cheresh. I will say, by the way, you could just understand. You could have a situation like this. A person has a stroke, so it's like a person has some. Again, remember, in Gemara in general, you don't need cases to be realistic in order for the Gemara to create a halachic construct. The point the Gemara is making over here is he had the capacity to deliver it. Right, but then right when he's about to say "B'fanei nechtam," ultimately again he becomes cheresh. I'll just say something else. It's such an incredible metaphor in life as well, which is sometimes I'm on a shlichus. Right, so we'll say people think it's only Chabad who has a shluchim. It's not true, right? Every Jew has a shlichus. So I'll say, so listen to this. Sometimes in life I have a shlichus. I'm on a mission, and what happens? I perform part of the shlichus. And then right as I get to the finish line of my shlichus, what happens? I become a cheresh. I'll say, how often in life does it happen that we're working on something, we put in effort, and just when we get to the point where all it needs is a little bit of effort, I shut down. Either because I get tired, right? It no longer has the new initiative life smell, whatever it is. I'm so close to the realization of my goals. Right? I'm so close to the realization of my shlichos. And then what happens? Ultimately, again, cheresh, nischaresh. Right? V'lo hispik lo farnechta ash nischaresh. We say how many things, right? We have this life closet that's filled with started but unfinished life initiatives. And if we only realized how close we actually were to finishing those life initiatives before we made ourselves into a cheresh, before I shut down, how frustrating that experience is. So much more accomplishment that is at hand if we would stop making ourselves into charash. In any event, the Gemara says as follows. Maybe that's the case. Case of Rabbi says, now I understand the Brisa. Here it is. Right? So Reuben is divorcing Rachel, just to frame the case, sends the get, and Reuben's in Medina Sayam, sends the get with a shaliach. Shliach shows up at Rachel, delivers the get, and then is unable, because he becomes a cheresh, to say "B'fanei nechtav" or "B'fanei nechtam." So what do we do in this case? So the Brisa says, okay, tragic case, but what do we do? Just certify the document from the signatures. Either track down the witnesses themselves, or just find someone who recognizes the signatures. Okay, to which the Gemara says, L'Rava necha, l'Rava kasha. Now I will say, this makes perfect sense according to Rava. Because according to Rava, what's the point of "B'fanei nechtam"? Kiyim shtara, certified document. So essentially, the Brisa says, if the shaliach can't certify it, someone else will certify it. However, l'Rabba kasha. Let's say, according to Rabba, though, Rabba needs "B'fanei nechtam." Why? Lishma. What good does tracking down the witnesses do for Lishma? To which the Gemara says, Hacham askinan. What's the case here? Li'achar shalamdu. The boss say this is fascinating. The case over here, this is really fascinating. The case over here is where, after who learned what? After in Medinas Hayam, they became more proficient with Lishma. In other words, both say, so apparently, like most things in life, it's an evolution. When Rabbah legislated and said, or when the Mishnah legislated and said, that when you bring a get from Medinas Hayam, you have to say Fainachtam, that was because, according to Rabbah, there was a real concern that in Medinas Hayam, they were not versed in the halachos of Lishma. Well, according to Rabbah, there came a point in time where what? They learned. They became versed. Right? They learned the halachos. And therefore, again, the concern was no longer there. Therefore, also, the Gemara suggesting over here is that this Mishnah reflects la'achar shalamdu. So even according to Rabbah, this Mishnah reflects a point in time where in Medinas Hayam, they once again, or they became proficient in Lishma, and therefore, again, no problem. Ihachi. So we'll say, if that's the case, Yachal Nami. So then we'll say, this should be true even in what? Even in a case where the Shaliach delivers the get, and he has the ability to say, B'fanei nechtav, u'b'fanei nechtam. According to Rabbah, he shouldn't have to say it. Why shouldn't he have to say it? Why not? Because in Medinas Hayam, they're conversant in Lishma. They know the halacha. To which the Gemara says, you're right, but according to Rabbah, what is Rabbah concerned about? Right now, they're knowledgeable about Lishma. What are we concerned about? That ultimately, again, they may lapse back into a period where they are not vigilant in it, and therefore, again, in order to it's like our insurance policy, just in order to ensure that a get that comes from Medinas Hayam is always Lishma, we kind of keep this halacha in place. Ihachi, eno yachol nami. Ihachi, eno yachol nami. Well, if that's the case, again, I'll say it's a little bit circular. So if that's the case, that even though, let's just play this out. So in Rabbah's view, here's what happened. In the beginning, right? So in the beginning, what occurred? So in Medinas Hayam overseas, they were not knowledgeable about Lishma. Okay? Therefore, what would happen? If you were bringing a get from Medinas Hayam to Eretz Yisrael, you had to say B'fanei nechtav or B'fanei nechtam. Okay. Then something interesting happened, which was they became knowledgeable, right? They got their act together. The Asper jury got its act together. Right? So the Asper jury, right, they got their act together. And therefore what? And therefore they became knowledgeable in Lishma. So we'll say, so according to Rabbah, then you should be able to stop saying B'fanei nechtam. No, Rabbah says they kept it on the books. Why? There was a concern, what happens if there's a breakdown again overseas? So they went ahead and they kept it there no matter what. So we'll say, so now plug this into our case. So in our case over here, you have a shaliach showing up from overseas with a get. He's unable to say B'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam. Why not? Because ultimately, again, it became a cheresh. So the Mishnah says, not a problem. What do? Certify the document through its witnesses. And I will say, this is good even according to Rabbah. Because according to Rabbah, halacha l'maisa what? Halacha l'maisa, in Medinas Hayam, they became knowledgeable about Lishma. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, why don't we just say, even if the Shaliach can't go, even if the Shaliach can say B'fanei, if he didn't, we can still certify the document. To which the Gemara says, no, Rabbah will say, no. If he can say it, he has to say it. Why? Shemiyachsir double kulo. Out of a concern that it may go back to what it was. If that's the case, Ihachi eno yachol nami. So we'll say, so therefore, again, if that's the case, therefore kind of back to square one, which is, if you bring a get from Medinas Hayam, you have to say B'fanei nechtam. So now we come full circle. If that's the case, then back to the Mishnah we just quoted over here on the bottom of Amud Beis, if a shaliach comes and is unable to go ahead and say B'fanei nechtam, why is the get valid? The get should be invalid. To which the Gemara says, you're right. But bikeach v'nischarish milsad lo shlicha, we'll say a case of a shaliach who is able and then becomes a cheresh is such an uncommon occurrence. It's such an infrequent occurrence, and therefore, umilsad lo shlicha lo gazer barabanan. We will say this is a general principle, a very important principle. Milsad lo shlicha, the rabbis, when they legislate law to govern common normative occurrences. There are always going to be outliers, and therefore, again, Chazal do not apply their legislation to outlier cases. Say Rabbi say. So normally, again, what's going to be the halacha? The halacha is you have to say fanechta fanechtam, and if you don't say fanechta fanechtam, what's the halacha? You're in trouble. You're in trouble according to Rabbi, right? Literally, again, the get, the authenticity of the get, the validity of the get is called into question. So what about this case over here, where the shaliach was healthy and normal when he delivered the get, but then became a cheresh before being able to say, shouldn't that invalidate the get? To which Rabbi will say, that's a milsa de lo sheicha. It's an uncommon occurrence. And an uncommon occurrence, Chazal did not legislate. Incredible. I will say, now watch this. Isa de lo sheicha. But I will say, the case of a woman bringing a get ultimately is an uncommon case. And I will say, just to show you, now when they say uncommon, listen to this. I will say, this is a fascinating case. This is a case, Reuven's married to Rachel. They're both overseas. Reuven gives the get to Rachel and says, this get will only be valid when you bring this, to the Beis Din in Yerushalayim. That's the case over here, right? Rashi points out that's the case. Right? So she's bringing her own get. And she's like a shaliach. She's both the wife and the shaliach and the agent, because the get is not chal until she brings it to Eretz Yisrael. That's a pretty uncommon case. Yet we learned ha'isha atzma mevia gita. A woman could bring her own get to Eretz Yisrael. I will say, but she has to say it. It's interesting, right? She has to say b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam. Why? Shelo tachlot b'shlichos. I will say, the Gemara says, but there. So we'll say, so that's an uncommon case. Yet we still see she has to say b'fanei nechtam. To which the Gemara answers, you're right. Shelo tachlot b'shlichos. I will say that's because we want agency to look uniform. We want shlichos to look uniform, right? So therefore, again, it can't be that there are some cases where shaliach does have to say it, other cases where the shaliach doesn't have to say it. So you're right. A woman bringing her own get is a milsa de lo shlicha. But even though, again, it's an uncommon occurrence, since it is shlichos, and we want shlichos to look uniform, we're going to make her say it. Incredible. Ihachi, if that's the case, bal nami. Shabbos say, if that's the case that you don't want to make a distinction by shlichos, all shlichos should look the same, then even when the husband himself brings the get, we should make him say b'fanei nechtav u b'fanei nechtam. Alama tanya, but why does it say in the Brayso? Hu atzmo shehevi gita intzarach lomer b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam. Also listen to this. If the husband himself brings the get, so let's say Reuven brings the get from Medina to Eretz Yisrael. Reuven does not have to say b'fanei nechtav u b'fanei nechtam. But one second. You just said before that even when a woman brings her own get, she has to say b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam. Why? Shlo tachlot b'shlichos. In order not to go ahead, in order that shlichos, agency, should look uniform. Well, if that's the case, even when the husband brings the get, he should have to say b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam. Why? In order to make it look uniform. To which the Gemara says, no, this is an easy one. We'll say, let's get back to it. Right? At its core level, right? Both like Rabbah and like Rabbah. Why did Chazal institute that a shaliach has to say b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam? Why is that there? Dilma asibal ma'arer upasole. They will say the entire institution of b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam, both according to Rabbah and to Rava, is to proactively prevent the husband from invalidating the document, from invalidating the get. That's what it is. Both according to Rabbah and to Rava, you are certifying that this is a kosher get. We'll say, can I just ask you a question? Stamp a document. You see a document, right? Someone presents a document. And let's say, we'll say, it's whatever kind of document it is, let's say a loan document. And it's, right, Reuven borrowed money from Shimon, 2 witnesses on it. What do we assume is the status of that document? Kosher. We'll say, that's the way it works in the halachos of shtaros. When you see a shtar that looks good, looks valid, we assume it's valid until we know otherwise. So we'll say, so shaliach comes with a get. Right? And it's written the right way, right? It has witnesses on it. When we see that get, what's our default assumption? Kosher. So why do you have to say anything? So we'll say, because what's driving all of this is a concern that a husband is going to come at some time later on and try to invalidate the document. That's our driving concern. Now, maybe he's going to try to invalidate it because of the shmar or something else. And I will say, obviously, a woman is going to get divorced and hopefully get remarried based on this get. If a husband shows up sometime later on trying to undermine the validity of this get, that's a disaster. That's a disaster. So what we are trying to do is proactively ensure that we close the door to get invalidation. So I will say that's what's driving this entire thing. Therefore, the Gemara says, tell me, when the husband is the guy himself who is delivering the get, therefore what? There is no concern about invalidation. So therefore, I will say, halacha l'maisa. That's why the Gemara says, if he himself is delivering the get, b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam no longer plays a role. No longer plays a role. So therefore, I will say, what about shlo tachlok b'shlichus? You want agency to look uniform? This is a different kind of case. Again, I will say the whole institution is here for him in order not to invalidate the get. If he's delivering the get, I will say, can you say, could he invalidate the get later on by saying it was under duress? Again, I will say halacha has to legislate for normal cases. You can't legislate for the abnormal. You can't, because you're going to say otherwise, that no legal system could go ahead and legislate for the abnormal. So therefore, if he's bringing the get, there's no issue that he's going to undermine it. So the Gemara says, he's bringing the get with his own hands. And now he's going to lodge an objection against the get later on. It doesn't make any sense. Therefore, there's no need for a fine nechtam. Good. What's that? Tashma. What's another interesting case? So we'll say all of this, the Gemara's attempt to try to disprove the position of Rabbah. Because remember, again, this is still an open machlokes. Right? We do not have, we have not, remember, I've avoided, had a tremendous Yitzy hara to share with you the Rambam. Yeah, halavai that she my Yitzy hara to share with you the Rambam, right? But it sounds nice, right? So again, I purposely resisted because it's still an open machlokes, right? We still don't know who do we pass like Rabbi and like Rav, and obviously what we're just trying to kind of go through are the major nafkaminas, practical differences between two opinions. Well, let's go back to Tashma. Shmuel Rafuna. Shnaim Shadi, get Medinas Hayam. Interesting case. We'll say up until now we've been operating with the idea that there is one agent who is bringing the get. What would happen if halacha l'maisa? You have two agents who bring the get, two shluchim. So what's the halacha? Tzrichin sheyomru b'fanei nechtam. Oh, ain't tzrichin. Do they have to say b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam, or not? Amrlei ain't tzrichin. He says no, they don't have to. Why not? Uma ilu yomru b'faneinu gersha milo mehemni. Well, I say, do you know why they don't have to say it? Because the presence of two, by definition, certifies the document. The fact that two witnesses are two. I'm not calling them witnesses, but they're kind of witnesses. In other words, they're agents, but they're also witnesses. So we'll say v'haraya. If two guys show up, listen to this case. If two guys show up and they say, you know what, we testify that Reuven divorced Rachel, and we'll say, what be the halacha? They're believed. Whereas anytime two witnesses go ahead and show up and give testimony, the Torah vests them with credibility. So we'll say, so if two guys were just to show up and say Reuven divorced Rachel, they'd be believed, all the more so when two guys are bringing the get. Right? When two guys are bringing the get, we'll say that effectively is testimony that what? Reuven is properly divorcing Rachel. So therefore, we'll say they don't have to say b'far nechtam, to which the Gemara says, l'rava necha, l'rava kasha. They both say this works perfectly according to Rava, right? Because according to Rava, the whole point of b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam is why? To certify the document, right? So therefore, again, two witnesses bring it, or two shluchim bring it, their mere presence that two people are bringing it, that certifies it. But l'rava kasha, but according to Rava, we still have the issue of l'shma. How do you know it was written l'shma? To which the Gemara says, Hachama, what's the case over here? The achar shalamdu. So we'll say, we'll keep going back to this answer. According to Rabbah, what's the case? The case we're talking about over here is where they already learned the halachos of Lishma and Medinas Hayam. In other words, once upon a time, Rabbah was concerned that they did not know how to write a get Lishma. Now, apparently, again, at a certain point, halacha l'maisa, they learned the halachos of Lishma. Yachi chad nami. If that's the case, I don't understand. If it's achar shalamdu, if halacha l'maisa, they already went ahead and learned. If they already learned the halachos of l'shma, then I don't understand. Even if one shaliach brings the get, he shouldn't have to go ahead and say, but he shouldn't have to say, in other words, we'll say, if it's achar shalamdu, that means what? According to Rabbah, there is no longer a question about lishma. If there's no longer a question about lishma, then dispense with befanei nechtav ubefanei nechtam altogether. To which the Gemara says, you're right. Shema yachs gzera, shema yachzir davar lekil kulo. Also, you have to be concerned that what? Maybe the matter is going to return to its original state, i.e. they're going to forget the laws of Lishman Chosr. There's such a musr in that statement. Shema yachzir, you have to legislate. Shema yachzir davar lekil kulo. You have to legislate lest things go back to the state of disrepair in which they existed, to the state of disrepair. We'll say, what's the Musar Haskell? The Mishnah Ava says, Al tamin ba'atzmecha ad yom osecha. Do not believe in yourself until the day that you die. Now we'll say, it sounds like such a depressing thought, but it's so real. We'll say, sometimes in life, we accomplish great things. Hopefully, often in life, we accomplish great things. But one of the most challenging things is that you could accomplish something great, and in that moment you've achieved such a level. What can't you do in life? What can't you do? You can't lock it in. Well, say, is that not the most frustrating thing in life? You could achieve something great, and then literally, whether it's 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 months, 2 weeks, 2 years, or whatever, is that too much? It's good, you understand, right? L'maisa, what could happen? You could experience the greatest downfall. But 1 second, I'm the guy who just had that incredible accomplishment. I'm the guy who just had that incredible aliya. I'm the guy who just experienced this incredible moment or sustained amount of time of greatness. Silber said the nature of the human condition is you can't lock in greatness. You could experience it, you do your best to retain it, but if there's almost one thing you can be absolutely sure of, there's going to be a fall from grace, right? There's going to be a valley after every single peak. I will say that's the idea. So I will say everything finds an expression halacha. That's Shema Yachzir Davar L'Kukula. I will say, listen to the lashon over here. What's the lashon? Li'achar shalamdu. In life, everybody has those moments of Li'achar shalamdu. What's the Achar shalamdu moments? I know what I'm doing, right? I've got it together. I've made my mistakes. I've learned from my mistakes. I've grown, and now I'm going to accomplish something great. That's my la'achar shalamdu moment. And I will say, what often happens after la'achar shalamdu? Shema yachzir davar l'kil kulo. I will say, here the Gemara says, Shema yachzir l'kil kulo. I will say, for us, it's more often, it's not really a Shema. It's just a Masai Yachzer Davar L'Kukulo. Right? Ultimately, I will say, by the way, the great part is if you embrace this dynamic of the human condition, it's so much easier to get out of the valleys when you know that they're part of life experience. In other words, sometimes we will say we get to the top of the mountain and we think that I'm going to stay here. Right? We think, okay, I've made it. We all have those moments where I made it. And we expect to set up shop. And we expect to go ahead that this is where I'm going to be. I made it. And then what happens? Literally again, I rolled down, right? I rolled down the mountain. And I'm in the lowest valley. And I feel like such a profound failure. Instead of feeling like a failure, I have to realize, okay, I failed, but failing in life does not make you a failure. Failing in life makes you a human being. So even those moments of la'achar shalamdu, it's always important to remember Shema Yachzir Davar L'Kil Kulo. And if you embrace this, Rabbi say, then when you roll down your mountain of accomplishment and you find yourself in the valley of failure, you find the strength to dust yourself off and pick yourself back up. Because I'm not a failure. I'm just a person who has failed. And the nature of the human condition is that no one stays on the top of the mountain. You try to stay there as long as you can and get back up there as quickly as you can, but falling down into the valley only enables me again to once again climb back up. I will say such an incredible use of who would have thought that from Gittin you could learn such profound life lessons. Let's go back there. To which the Gemara says, if that's the case, and that's the case, if it's la'achar shalamdu, then even one witness should not have to say once again, the Gemara says, Shem yachzir davar l'kil kulo, Beit Shrei Nami, so we'll say it's circular. So, okay, if we're concerned about Shem Yachzir Davar L'Kil Kulo, then even when two witnesses bring the get, they should have to, or two shluchim bring the get, they should have to say b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam, to which the Gemara answers, beit trei demaisi gita milsa de lo shlicha. Let's say two people bringing a get is an uncommon experience. Umilsa de lo shlicha lo gazer barabanan. And an uncommon occurrence, Chazal did not legislate about that. Incredible. I v'ha'isha de lo shlicha. Rabbi say it's uncommon for a woman to bring her own get, and yet we learned the Tanan. Ha'isha asma mevia gita, a woman can bring her own get. Ubevatshi asma tzricha lomar befanei nechtav ubefanei nechtam. But as long as what? As long as she goes out and she says befanei nechtav ubefanei nechtam. So we'll say that's an uncommon case. That's an uncommon case. Yet we legislate that a woman has to say it. Shlo tachlot b'shlichus. We'll say it's the same argument that we said before. Same exact mark. So in order not to distinguish between different forms of agency, we want agency to look uniform. Oh, you want agency to look uniform? Yachi bal nami. If that's the case, then when the husband brings the get, he's effectively acting as a shliach as well. He should have to say b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam. Alama Tanya. Why did we learn? Who asked Moshe Hivigito when the husband brings the get himself? He doesn't have to say b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam. So we'll say, but I don't understand. If you want to make agency uniform, then he should have to say it. No. We'll say, let's go back. Why do we say b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam? Both according to Rabbi and to Rava. What are we concerned about? The Gemara says, Dilma asi b'ama ara pasule. We'll say at our core what we're concerned about is lest the husband come along and go ahead, cast aspersions on the get, and try to go ahead and invalidate it. That's what I'm concerned about. To which the Gemara says, Hashta, minkat nokit li biyadei, birur kam arele. If the husband himself is bringing it, do you think that ultimately, again, he's going to go ahead and cast aspersions on it? Of course not. Good. We'll say, so now, again, we'll say we tried to refute Rabbah, didn't work. Next. Tashma. Hamevi get Medina Sayam. Benasnu la. Velo Amar la. Befanech Dafai Nechtam. So let's listen to this brayso. Right? A shliach brings the get. Right? Reuven's divorcing Rachel. Reuven gives the get to Shaliach. Shaliach goes ahead and brings the get, gives it to Rachel, and he doesn't say Befanei Nechtav Befanei Nechtam. He didn't say it. What's the halacha? In this Kayim Bechal Samav Kasher. So if you're able to go ahead and certify the document through its signatures, it's kasher. We'll say first white line, hand without vim lav, and if not, vim lav puzzle. If not, it's puzzle. To which the Gemara says, Havi lo hutzru chulor farnechta farnechta lahachmir aleh ela lahakil aleh. So we'll say this is really interesting. It's really interesting. So the Gemara says, so if ultimately again he says farnechta farnechtam, sorry, he did not. Here's the case. Shaliach is bringing the get from Medina Sayam. He did not say b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam. Okay? So if you're able to certify the get through its signatures, kasher. But if not, it's possible. So the Gemara says, why? Have ohutzrichu lomar b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam hachmir el hakela. Both say, the whole point, so it's an interesting case. So here, the Shaliach is able to say it, but he didn't. Bless you. So what does he do in a case where he could have, but he didn't? Certify the document through his signatures. Why? We'll say why. Because the Gemara says the whole point of the b'fanei nechtam is what? To make life easier for her, not to make life more difficult for her. In other words, we'll say, let's go back for just a second. What does b'fanei nechtam do? What does it do? Right? It makes the get indisputable. Right? The get's bulletproof. Right? After this, again, listen, just to point out, even if the husband shows up, I didn't write it, it's forged, whatever he says, we don't even listen to him. At least we'll see how halacha, but right now, we don't even give him a platform to be able to go ahead and lodge that complaint. There's no discussion. So the whole point of b'fanei nechtam is quote unquote to be mekel on her, not to be machmir. So therefore, again, if the shaliach goes ahead and omits b'fanei nechtam, okay, if you can certify the document through the agency, through the signatures, great. To which the Gemara says, Hanicha. So the Gemara says, l'Rava necha, l'Rava kasha. Rabbi said this makes perfect sense according to Rava, because according to Rava, the whole point of b'fanei nechtam is what? Certification of document. But according to Rabbi says you have a problem of lishma. So how does it help if you find the witnesses? To which the Gemara says once again, Rabbi says it's the same Gemaras. What's the case? The achar shalamdu. Oh, The case of Moshe is according to Rabbah, where after they learned in Chutz La'aretz how to do Gittin Lishma. So therefore, according to Rabbah, really, again, there's no problem of Lishma. But one second, you said before that even according to Rabbah, and even after they learned about Lishma and Chutz La'aretz, you still have to say Fanechtam. Why? Lest the matter revert to his previous state of disrepair. Kishani says. What are we talking about? Rabbi says incredible. What are we talking about? We're talking about a case where Rachel received the get and already remarried. Shabbos say, if she already, so Rabbi would say, look, if she already remarried and they didn't say Fanechtam, but they certified the get through its signatures, fine. To which the Gemara says, Ihachi, Havi lo chutzre chulor Fanechtam lahachmir ala haki ala mishum denisesu. It will say, in reality, then the Brisa should read differently. Because how did the Brisa read? Shaliach comes and did not say Fanechtam. If you could certify the document, ultimately, again, with the signatures, with the witnesses, you're good to go. Why, says the Brisa? Because Fanechtam was only there to be mekel, not to be machmir. To which the Gemara says, well, that's not the reason. The reason you're saying over here is why? Because she already got married. That's why we're just going to let this go. Because, right, so why, in other words, that's the reason why we're not going to invalidate the get. To which the Gemara says, that's what I mean to say. So also maybe you'll say in this case over here, even if she remarried, because the Shaliach never said, maybe we should make her leave her second marriage. Because again, they failed to comply with the proper procedures for the get. To which the Gemara says, I will say that's why the Brisa responds, no. Understand, this entire thing, Fanechtam, was only meant to make things easier for her, not to make things more difficult. I'm a base. Time am I? Because we'll say, what is the whole point? What is the whole point of Befanei Nechtav or Befanei Nechtam? We'll say, what's the whole point? Dilma asi ba ma'ara pasile. We'll say the whole point is, what are we concerned about? What are we scared of? We're scared that one day the husband is going to decide to come back and say, you know what? I never authorized the get. Hashta bal lo kama'arar. So we'll say, so that's the point of Fanechtam. So again, like we said, Befanei Nechtav or Befanei Nechtam, we'll say, essentially closes the get process in a way that what? It cannot be reopened. So Rabbi say, Hashta, now in the case over here in the Brisa, Hashta balo kama'arna. We'll say, so now remember, what's our case? Our case is where Shaliach delivers the get. What didn't he do? He didn't say Fanechtam. Okay. So now we'll say, now she got remarried. So what? So we'll say, so now we're going to tell her, you have to leave the marriage because the get's invalid. There's no husband showing up, right? No one's arguing on the get. So if the husband himself, or the ex-husband, is not coming and questioning the authenticity of the get, are we going to question its authenticity? In other words, we'll say, the whole point of Fanechtam is to prevent something from occurring. So if the matter that we're concerned about is not occurring, we're not going to be more machmir unnecessarily. So Rabbi say, in the case where Allah Chalamaisa, Shliach didn't say Fanechtam, she gets remarried with this get. We're not going to make her leave second marriage, because if the husband is not coming and questioning the validity of the get, then we are not going to make her leave the marriage unnecessarily. To which the Gemara is fine. So I will say, good. So we'll say, now the Gemara pauses here for just a moment and wants to suggest the following. The machlokis Rabbah and Rabbah is in fact an earlier machlokis Amoraim between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yoshua. Chad Amar, Lefi Shemikim Lishma. One opinion says that the reason you have to say Befanei Nechtav or Befanei Nechtam is because in Medina Sayam they were not proficient in Lishma. The Chad Amar Lefi Shem Eidim Mitzuyim Lakaimo. And the second opinion says because again there are not witnesses to testify to the validity of the document. So Tistayim Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi the Amar Lefi Shemikim Lishma. Sirba say it's Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi who holds like Rabbah that it's a problem of Lishma. Why? We'll also listen to this story. To Rabbi Shimon Bar Abba, I see Gita Lekamid Rabbi Shimon Levi. He brought a get. And I will say, now, from the context of here, Rabbi Shimon Bar Abba was the Shaliach. He was the Shaliach bringing the get. He brought the get in front of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. And he was asking Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, do I have to say b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam or not? Or not. I will say, just to be clear, the case of Rabbi Shimon Abba, he was bringing a get, Rashi says, from Medinas Hayam. So he's bringing a get overseas. He brings it in front of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. He's about to deliver. He says, Rabbi, do I have to say b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam or not? Amar lei, lo tzrichas. Says Rabbi Shimon Levi, says, you don't have to anymore. Why not? Lo amru ela b'doras harishonim she'em b'kiyim l'shma. Because the enactment of b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam for a get that came from Medinas Hayam was only when? In earlier generations. Why? Ultimately, again, she'em b'kiyim l'shma. Because it used to be in previous times, they were not proficient in the laws of l'shma Medinas Hayam. Av b'doras ha'achronim, but in our current generations, the b'kiyim l'shma, that they know how to write their Gittin l'shma, lo. You don't have to say b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam. So we'll say, what do you see from here? Tistayim. So we'll say, therefore, again, it's Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, who is of the opinion, like Rabbah, that the reason for b'fanei nechtam is to address the issue of lishma from Gittin, which come from Medinas Hayam. So we'll say, so therefore, again, by elimination, if Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi is the opinion who holds that it's a problem of lishma, then Rabbi Yochanan is going to be the opinion that holds like Rava, lefi she'ein edin mitzuyin lekaimo, that you have to say b'fanei nechtam as a way of as a form of kiyum shtaros. So the Gemara, listen to this. V'tizbara. Rabbi will say, but again, let's analyze this. V'harabba islei de Rava. So let's remember again, we saw this in yesterday's daf. One of the most startling revelations was that Rabbah also agrees with Rabbah. Right? Siyabo said, up until yesterday's daf, we thought that halacha l'maisa, they are opposing one another, right? They are opposite opinions. It turns out that Rabbah is not arguing on Rabbah, rather what is he doing? He's adding on to Rabbah. Right? Rabbah says, Rabbah, I agree with you. In addition to the problem of ein eidim mitzuyin l'kaimo, when you bring a get from overseas, we have to be concerned that if the authenticity of the get is called into question, it's going to be hard to find the witnesses or someone who recognizes the signatures of the witnesses to validate the get. I agree with that. And in addition, there's still a problem of the shema, right? So I will say, so here's what's interesting. Now what this means is, according to Rabbah, even if for argument's sake, there's no longer a problem of the shema. For example, in Medinas Hayam they now became proficient in the shema, he would still agree that what? You still need the finektam as a form of kiyum shtaros. So the Gemara says, "Va'od ha'aminan shemiyachsu dev'kukulo." Furthermore, again, I will say, even according to Rabbah, right? According to Rabbah, with the Shema, even if you want to say that currently they are proficient in the Shema, we already saw that what? There's a concern that what? Matters may return to their original state of disrepair. Ella, Rabbi Shimon bar Abba, so really what we're questioning over here is like this. Right? Let's just go back for just a second. Rabbi Shimon bar Abba is bringing a get from Medinas Hayam. This is the case, right? He's a shliach. He's bringing it from Medinas Hayam. He comes over to Rabbi Shimon Levi in Eretz Yisrael. He says, Rabbi, do I need to say b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam or not? Right? Rabbi Shimon Levi says, no. Why not? Why not? Because again, now they're b'kiyum l'shma. But one second. Even if they are b'kiyum l'shma, I will say, right? Rabbah holds like Rabbah. In which case, even if you eliminate the l'shma issue, you still have what? Ein eidim mitzuyin l'kaimo. And therefore you should still have to say b'fanei nechtam. Furthermore, even though they're currently good l'shma, we should still have to be concerned that what? Shemi yachzer davar l'kukulo. So therefore we'll say, either way you got it, what? Which be the halacha? You have to say b'fanei nechtam. So Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, why are you telling Rabbi Shimon bar Abba that he doesn't have to say b'fanei nechtam? So we'll say, this is incredible. To which the Gemara says, you're right. Ella, Rabbi Shimon bar Abba, inish achrina hava ba'adei. I will say, this is incredible. There was another person with Rabbi Shimon bar Abba. He wasn't bringing the get alone. There were two shluchim. It was him and another guy. So why doesn't Rabbi Yoshua? But yet Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi only addressed Rabbi Shimon bar Abba. V'hadulo chashiv lei mishum kivodu de Rabbi Shimon. So I will say, apparently the other guy was just like a regular guy. So I will say, so he's not mentioned in the story. Why not? Out of kavod to Rabbi Shimon bar Abba. So I will say, so in fact, what Rabbi Yoshua, when he comes in front of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, the reason why Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says that he didn't have to say Nechtam was why not? Why not, Rabbi say? Because there were two people bringing the get. Rabbi say, remember again, what we learn on Amud Aleph? When two people bring a get, they don't have to say B'fanei Nechtav or B'fanei Nechtam. What about Shlo Tachlot B'shlichos, to make Shlichos uniform? Two people bringing a get from this is a Milsa de lo Shlicha, uncommon occurrence. Milsa de lo Shlicha, uncommon occurrence, lo Gaza Be'Rabbanan. So Rabbi says, so in fact, so it's incredible. So in fact, when Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says to Rabbi Shimon bar Abba that you don't have to say B'fanei Nechtav or B'fanei Nechtam, the real reason was because there were two people bringing the get. So why didn't Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi say there's two of you? Because Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi was concerned that saying there's two of you would have been a slight to Rabbi Shimon bar Abba, because the other person was just a regular guy. So Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi was concerned that if I say the two of you, we'll say, when you say to people, the two of you, right? We'll say, what is the two of you? It's like when you say, you guys, right? You guys, right? You guys, right? What is you guys? You guys is like, okay, like it's a group. It's a group. The two of you. So Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi was concerned that it would be a slight to the cover of Rabbi Shimon bar Abba if he would have said, well, there's two of you. So therefore, again, what does he do? He doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything. He just says, you don't have to say B'fanei Nechtam. Which I will say, such an incredible Moser. First of all, how careful you have to be with the feeling of other people. And I will say, sometimes the best way to preserve the dignity and feelings of other people is to say as little as possible. Right? Sometimes, again, saying less ensures that you maintain the dignity of the other to the most heightened level. Such an incredible yisod. Let's go back there. Anyway, let's go back there. There's a lot. I just want to point out over here. There's also like a lot of things like swirling around over here. We will get to the halacha l'maisa in just a bit. Well, when I say just a bit, a few weeks. You want to say as follows: Itmar. Sooner than a few weeks, but like not today or tomorrow. Say Itmar. B'fnei kamen also. So we'll say. So now we're transitioning to another statement. Now, again, I'm purposely not doing the Rambam yet because we're going to do the Rambam kind of like in one fell swoop. The truth is not just the Rambam, it's the Shulchan Aruch. This is Hilchos Gittin. Hilchos Gittin is in Even HaEzer. We have a whole section of Shulchan Aruch over here. So again, we'll discuss that as well. So Itmar, B'fnei kamen also. So we'll say, so now, just to point out, we still have this open-ended machlokes, Rabba and Rava. Right? Why do we say B'fanei Nechtam? So right, I've got Rabba, the Shema, right, Rabba, Lefisha, Edim, Zuyim, Kaimo. Now we'll say a couple of startling revelations. Startling revelation number one is Rabba agrees with Rava. He's not disagreeing. He also holds Edim, Zuyim, Kaimo. He's just adding on something additional. You know the startling revelation? Medina and Sayam got their act together and became proficient in Lishma. Right? But nevertheless, what are we concerned about? Things might revert back to their previous state of disrepair. What else do we know? If the husband himself brings the get, no B'fanei Nechtam. Two, right, woman brings the get, yes B'fanei Nechtam. Two, shluchim bring the get, no B'fanei Nechtam. Why? Because again, it's a most low shlicha. So all of this stuff is hanging out there. We'll bring it together. One more important piece. When the shaliach delivers the get, in the presence of how many people does he have to deliver? So this goes back to beforehand. Remember, one thing is clear. B'fanei Nechtam or B'fanei Nechtam is the beginning of a conversation, right? It's not the pshat like, B'fanei Nechtam, they don't mic drop. He like walks away, right? That's it, I'm done, right? I'm out, right? And I'll say, no, it's not like, it's not like that. In other words, B'fanei Nechtam or B'fanei Nechtam, right, is ultimately, again, it is, he says it, and then Rabbi said, again, according to Rabbi, it begins a conversation. Oh, you saw the guy with Lishma, right? Did you see it Lishma? You saw that? And it's a conversation. Again, B'fanei Nechtam, if it's in Edim Zuyim Kaimo, once again, did you see them, son? You know them. It's a conversation. The fact that it's a conversation indicates to us that Allah L'maisa is being given in front of a group. So what's now the Gemara says, B'fnei Kamo, how large is the group? The which Gemara says, B'fnei Kamo, Rabbi Yochanan B'chanina, Chad Amar B'fnei Shnayim, Chad Amar B'fnei Shlosha. What's interesting? One opinion says 2 people, one opinion says 3 people. Machlokes. So this time the Rabbi Yochanan who Amar B'fnei Shnayim, but it must be Rabbi Yochanan who holds that it's 2. Why? The Rav and Barav, there's another story. The Rav and Barav Chista Aisi Gitla K'mei Rabbi Yochanan. Rav and Barav Chista once brought a get in front of Rabbi Yochanan. So we'll say this is the same type of case. Ravin is bringing a get from overseas. He's the shaliach. He's bringing it, right? He's bringing it from Rabbi Yochanan. And he says, right, and Rabbi Yochanan says to him, Zil havla ba'ape trey. Go ahead and give it over in front of two people. Ve'ema lehu b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam. And say in front of them, b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam. Okay, so also this is pretty explicit. You see Rabbi Yochanan saying, give the get over in front of two people and say b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam. So Rabbi Yochanan holds two to staying. Gemara says, good, you're right, solid. You're supposed to say, what's the machlokas? What's the machlokas? Whether you're giving it over in front of two or three, this is fascinating. The one who says you give over the get in front of two, kasavar lefi shem b'kiyim neshama. So we'll say the one who's giving it over in front of two, he says, what's the problem? What's the driver of nechtam? Ultimately, again, like Rabbah, the issue is lishma. Now what does that mean? So therefore, when the shaliach comes and delivers the get, and he says b'fanei nechtam, essentially what he's doing is he's giving over testimony that the get was written lishma. Two witnesses now hear that the get is written l'shma, and we're good. Look at Rashi. Rashi says, "Lefi shem mityin hilchach betray sagi de lahavus sahadi de amr shtech b'fanei nechtam." So we'll say. So essentially now you have two witnesses who say the shaliach testified in front of us that the get was written l'shma. Good, that's it. However, the Gemara Saman Damar Shlo b'fnei Shlosha, the one who says you have to give it on in front of three, kasavar lefi shem edim suyin l'kaimo. I will say, so the one who says ultimately three, this is Kiyum Shtaras. I will say, how is Kiyum Shtaras certification documents normally done? In front of a Beis Din. So therefore, again, you're going to require three. Rashi says, Edim, the Chevan de Kiyumehu Ba'inan Tlasa, Kiyum Shtaras B'Shlosha. Also, it says in Meseches Ksuvas, that Allah Chamaisa Kiyum Shtaras is always done in front of a Beis Din of three. So we'll say, that's Machlokas. The one who says two, he goes with the idea of Rabbah, that it's Lishma. Therefore, all they need is two witnesses to attest that the get was written l'shma. One who says Kiyum Shtaras, Rava requires a Beis Din, because right, Kiyum Shtaras always requires a Beis Din. The Tizbara, one second, let's analyze this. Both say if Rabbi Shmuel Levi is going to say that it's din l'shma, Rabbi Yochanan Amar lefi shem edim musin l'kaimo. The Rabbi Yochanan will say beforehand. This is referencing back to the previous machlokas. Rabbi Yochanan will be the one who says that it's an issue of edim musin l'kaimo. V'hacha, so if that's the case, v'hacha hechi kam Rabbi Yochanan b'fnei shnayim. Then how can Rabbi Yochanan say that over here you only need to give over the get in front of two witnesses? V'od, furthermore, harabba is leid Rava. And we'll say, let's go back. I can't remember. We just said before that what? Rabba agrees with Rava. Which means what, Rabbi will say? Which means what? According to everyone, there's a din of Kiyum Shtaras. If there's a din of Kiyum Shtaras, then how many people should you have to give over the witness, have to give over the get in front of? 3. So which means, Ella, you're right. Okay. Ella, d'chuli alma, ba'inon edun, so in the kaimo. So we'll say, in reality, everyone agrees, this is fascinating, everyone agrees that Allah L'maisa, when the shaliach gives over the get, right, there is a Kiyum Shtaras that is occurring over here. Certification of document. If there is certification of document, how many people do you need for document certification? 3. You need a Beis Din. So I will say, so then what's the machlokes? Whether you need 2 or 3. So if you need 3, what's the machlokes if you need 2 or 3? Watch this. V'hacha, it's fascinating. V'hacha, v'shliach na'asa eid, v'eid na'asa dayin k'miflagi. I will say, watch this. There's a fascinating idea over here of could a shaliach, an agent, become a witness, and could a witness become a judge? Can you transform in your roles, right? Can you have an evolutionary role? So we'll say, just to point out how that fits in over here, right? Reuben's divorcing Rachel. He sends the get in the hands of a shaliach. So the shaliach now is going to show up. Now I will say, one thing is clear, which is shliach na'aseh eid, right? An agent can become a witness. Now how do we know that? The fact that the shaliach says, b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam. What is he doing? So I will say, what is an agent? An agent is a courier, right? There's a courier, right? So that's all. The fact that this agent says b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam tells me that now an agent can transform into an aid, into a witness. So we'll say, now what's the real shaila? Could a witness become a dayan? Right? Could a witness ultimately transform into a judge? Now watch this. Mandar b'fnei shnayim. So there, Rabbi say the opinion that says that the shaliach only has to go ahead and give it in front of 2 people. He holds what? Kasavar shaliach na'aseh eid ve'eid na'aseh dayan. This is great. So we'll say, watch this. This shaliach, he transforms from a shaliach to an aid. When does he transform? When he says b'fanei nechtam. Then after that, what could he do? he could join with the other two guys there. He could transform into a dayan now, become part of that unit of three to certify the document. Rabbi say, hear that? One guy, three identities, right? First, he identified as a shaliach, right? Then he identified ultimately again as an aid, and then he identified ultimately again as a dayan. Three different identities, one guy. Now, I will say, so therefore again, if he the same way that he could transform from a shaliach into an aid, he can go ahead and transform from an aid into a dayan and becomes part of that unit to certify the document. Once let's finish up, Uman Damer Bifnei Gimel, but the one who says no, you have to give it over in front of a group of three. Kasavar Shliach Nasa Aid. He agrees ultimately again a shaliach can transform into an aid, but the ain aid Nasa Dayan. Ultimately again, but an aid, right? A witness cannot become a judge, and therefore what we need a separate independent three for kiyum shtaros. But I will say ultimately again, but we learned elsewhere that in rabbinic law, a witness, right, an aid can become a dayan. So we'll say we're going to pause over here for today. So I'm leaving you a little bit. So we'll say, so again, what we're leaving off with over here is this incredible machlokes about how many people do you have to give over the get in front of. One says two, one says three. So what the Gemara wanted to suggest is that halacha l'maisa, it's a machlokes. What's the machlokes? Essentially, do we say aid na'aseh dayan or not? Everyone agrees that shaliach na'aseh aid. Everyone says that a shaliach could transform into a witness. The question is, can a witness transform into a judge? So the opinion that says you only need two other people holds because, again, the shaliach can become the third for the Beis Din to certify the document. The opinion that says no, you need three holds that the shaliach cannot become a dayan. I will say, now we effectively just refuted that because the Gemara said, but 1 second, in matters of rabbinic law, everyone agrees that aid na'aseh dayan. If that's the case, everyone should agree over here. So you're going to say, well, pause here, pick up with this. I just want to end off by telling you what a Musar Haskell. We'll say, what do you see from this? What do you see from this? Aid na'as, right? What do you will say? Everyone agrees that shliach na'aseh aid, right? What's the machlokes? What's the machlokes of aid na'aseh dayan? So you know what it's a machlokes in? It's a machlokes in the scope of change. It's a machlokes in how much change could one person affect. See, I will say, there's an opinion that says you could affect as much change in yourself as you want, right? You could literally go all the way from a shaliach and you could become a dayan. Rabbi say, shliach and a dayan are exact opposites. A shaliach, what does a shaliach do? What does a shaliach do? Deliver. Right, deliver. Right? He's an agent. He does what other people tell him to do. Rabbi say, what does a dayan do? What does a dayan do? A dayan creates realities. A dayan says, tamei tar, kosher treif, mutter, usser. First opinion says, you could literally go from one end of spectrum of change to the other. You could become a tool of someone else, to become a creator of realities. Aid na'aseh dayan. Other opinion says, hold up, right? Shliach na'aseh aid. You could affect some change, but ein aid na'aseh dayan. There's a cap as to the amount of change that one person can affect. I won't say how he passed it, we'll see. But one thing is clear. Whether you say you could affect a lot of change or a little bit of change, one thing everyone agrees on, which is you could affect change in your life. Whether it's a little or whether it's a lot, each of us have the ability to be the agents of change within our own lives. So stop over here. Shkoyach. All right, Chevron Zoom, have a great day, everyone.